What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Jack Ramsays, Danny Marang, Brandon Sprague. It is a wonderful, wonderful day. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. Brandon Sprague is back from Disneyland.
Broker and better than ever, Daniel.
How you doing, buddy?
Robbed by a goddamn mouse and a duck.
They get you good.
Dude, Mickey was like, hey, you got to give us your money before you leave. And I was like, come on, man, I'm not really going to do that. And then Donald came out of nowhere and was like, he just took it all. And I was like, okay, fuck, this dude's crazy. Just take the shit. You're on fentanyl. I don't know what you're doing.
Like, if we're talking about Disney characters most likely to be on Fenny, it's Donald Duck. Right?
Right.
Like,
yes.
Like,
yes.
The list starts and ends with Donald Duck. Goofy's smoking the dankest of weed. Just yuck. Just over here eating all of the munchies.
Dude, Goofy is definitely the Cheech and Chong of the Disney cat.
100%. 100%. Mickey's over here straight-laced, but he's the one cutting shit up. We know that.
Mickey's quietly like the real, like, into kink stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, yeah, let's say our prayers and eat dinner today. And then he goes home. And
then he's like, at the Mariah Mills tweets.
He's wearing a gag. Like, what's going on, Mickey?
Oh, man. Okay, that's how we're going to start the show. Perfect. Appreciate y'all. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us go to the show. We're just about to 5,000, finally. After a long month-plus hiatus and a little bit of a break here or there, we are back to the relatively normal schedule, and we're going to ramp up a ton over the next couple of days. As we get closer and closer to the NBA draft, we are now 9 days from the NBA draft. And in the least surprising fashion, stuff is heating up.
Leaking
Weird.
Big time.
Weird. The posturing's changing from, nothing's available to number 3 to, how about a generational talent for number 3?
You know how, like, in a
weird how that
movie,
works.
They close the doors, the water's rushing into the bottom of the submarine, they close the doors. You're like, okay, the door seals it. All of a sudden, like an hour later, the door's making noise.
Yeah. The bolts are firing off. Yeah.
That's what the number 3 pick is doing right now with the draft 9 days away. But interesting things to discuss right now based on some recent reporting for sure. Yeah,
no, and I think that's probably the best place to start for those that are unaware, either didn't listen to my show or Brandon's show this afternoon. There are rumors out there that, well, not even rumors. I mean, Shams Charania reported it, that the New Orleans Pelicans, David Griffin and the Pelicans, are very much after Scoot Henderson. Those notes popped up probably about 2 weeks ago, I would say, behind the scenes. It was a matter of like, how serious is it to, they're pretty serious about this. Because listen, it's one thing to be like, I really like that player. It's another to be like, I really like that player and I'm willing to give up stuff to get that player. This kind of, again, not to like, toot my own horn, but this is kind of like the number 3 pick is super valuable. Like, this is kind of what I was talking about.
Right.
It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, well, if you kind of squint and see some things, like whether it's Brandon Miller, whether it's Scoot Henderson, like teams are enamored. Let's kind of run through the timeline real quick. Was it Sunday, Jonathan Givney said that more teams than not now have Brandon Miller above Scoot Henderson. Mm-hmm. Now, is that smokescreen season? Probably. Is there probably a nugget of truth in there? Probably. Are there teams that have Scoot Henderson behind Brandon Miller? Absolutely. I know teams that have Scoot number 3 and Brandon number 2. Like, It's not a surprise.
Yeah.
The question is, and I actually asked Scoot this when he came in for his workout, was, and this is kind of, at least this is kind of the thought process, is that Brandon Miller, while playing in college, had pressure on him the entire time. Even if he did underperform, Scoot kind of shut things down. And I asked Scoot about that in a sense of like, do you think kind of shutting things down with the G League made things a little bit, like, did you get kind of bored? And he did a great job of not answering the question directly, but just saying like, I was focused on the draft. And
Right.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Shaden Sharp shut down his entire college year.
Yeah.
And look at him now. It's that simple. It's just very, very interesting to kind of see where things are right now. Before we dive into the Zion part of this, what are your thoughts, senses, feelings as you look at like where things are 9 days out heading into the draft?
I would say things are shaping up pretty well today for Portland in a couple ways. If they want to stick with the pick, and I know that kind of comes with its own trunk load of questions and things that need to be answered, I think you're sitting in a pretty good spot, right? Like when you got number 3, you're like, well, shoot, Charlotte already has a point guard. Do you want to take the ball out of Melo's hands and then just give it to a rookie? How's that making Melo feel? So then there's Brandon Miller. The fit kind of is natural. Whereas Scoot falls into your lap. And, you know, I know the Dame narrative stuff every offseason's annoying to no end. But, like, if it were to finally be a summer where it didn't work and certain guys didn't want to come, like, Scoot seems like a pretty nice restart. So I think you're sitting good with your draft position. And player asset wise, I mean, I think this is going to kind of be wavy, Danny. I think it's going to be up and down almost every day to even the pick. Because where were we at 2 weeks ago? We were asking ourselves, ooh, can we get, I think Jaylen Brown might be available. It's not looking good. They kind of flamed out of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals. And he had like 8 turnovers and Boston didn't like him. But then like Brad Stevens comes out and goes, we love him. We value him. We want to give him the contract.
He did the right thing.
I get that is just the right thing to say. But I kind of feel like maybe that's fallen off a little bit for Portland, that Jaylen Brown isn't necessarily there as much. And so I think the assets just continue to do this. And eventually come draft day, we'll have a pretty clear idea of which guys it gets revealed are available, which teams are desperate to try to get Scoot if indeed it goes Miller too, or what Portland wants to do with that pick when they're on the clock, given all of the young talent evaluators they have on their front office staff.
The interesting thing about this, whether it's Scoot or it's Miller, is that there's real value. There's real value in both players, and whether Portland makes the pick or not, or they trade the pick, you always want to get the squeeze the most value out of this, and I think that's kind of what Joe and his staff have kind of signal flared. We're going to do the thing that gets us the most value. Mm-hmm. And I look at kind of how things have shaped up. And for me, it's very simple. If Zion Williamson is indeed gettable, and it requires the number 3 pick plus the necessary salary, you do your due diligence starting probably 4 days ago. And you look at the medicals, because that's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And if the medicals aren't red flagged, and before everybody starts losing their mind about stuff, number 1, if you want to read all about it, I wrote it on my Patreon. It's like 2,000 words of like the entire timeline of his medical history in the NBA. The thing about it that's interesting to me is this. His 3 major injuries: torn meniscus rookie year 3, the broken foot, and then year 4, the hamstring. Number 1, they're all lower body, and to me, they all reek of stress injuries, which has to do with weight. So if the medical's clear and he's not Brandon Roy, or he's got degenerative knees, he's not Greg Oden, or he's got one leg literally 1.5 inches longer than the other one, he's not Lonzo Ball with degenerative knees, he's not Grant Hill with degenerative ankles. Injuries are one thing. Degenerative disease and actual like holy shit red flags, those are compensations that you can figure out. Like, again, I quasi-expert on lower body injuries.
You don't say. You haven't had 3 or 4 major reconstructive surgeries on your legs.
12, to be exact. 12, to be exact. In fact...
So we don't want you either.
No. Go ahead. Look, peek behind the curtain. Brandon went on this trip, and my surgeon, Brandon actually knows. Mm-hmm. Tell them what my surgeon told you.
Might be one of the worst conditioned people at his age in terms of hip and knee. Might be, and there might not be anybody above. Said something to the effect of, like, you're built like an 80-year-old.
My legs are destroyed. I have degenerative issues in both my hips, in my left knee and my right ankle. Okay?
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
Like, I am just going to continually have damage and get hurt and be in pain and all those things. Zion's, if you get a look at the medicals, it could just be he's just too damn big.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real thing. Because I've talked to folks who told me that he was playing at 330 pounds.
It's pretty massive, even for a 6'8" dude.
6'8". But he's generously listed at 6'6".
Well, 6'7", 6'6", you know,
that
family.
He's 6'5".
In that family, okay?
Zion
plays like he's 6'8", Dan.
He plays like he's 6'10". He plays like he's big as hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, the issue is he needs to lose the weight. And I know fat guy saying another guy needs to lose weight is comical at best, stupid at worst. But
hey, we're not body shaming here.
If it comes down, look, man, everything that he's done, it's because he's just too damn big. And that's a real thing. When you get so big and the fact that Zion was doing this stuff at over 300 pounds is insane. Mm-hmm. It's that shows you the kind of athlete that he is, the explosion that he has. If you can get beyond the medicals, like you get through there and there's no degenerative disease, the biomechanics, like what's his name? Max is nice, the IG video guy that makes the comp videos, does the Zion waddle run. Like, as long as that run, like the biomechanics aren't completely sideways, you have to take a very hard look at that. Because Brandon, pick a name in the NBA, pick a great player, just any name.
Jason Tatum.
Is Zion more talented?
I think when you look at actual gameplay and impact, I mean, they were the 1 seed in the West this year because of what he was able to do as a creator. Okay. I think if he's healthy and we're not talking about weight issues, I take
no, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're talking about like the peak talent of Zion Williamson.
Yes.
Okay, he's 22 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You are not going to find a better talent than Zion. Now, I'm not saying that you have to make the move. I'm just saying if you get the medicals and you get through it and you're okay taking on that risk, you have to then go to Damian Lillard and be like, you are the best leader in sports. We are going to lean on you harder than we ever have because we need you to get this guy on the straight and narrower. Not straight and narrow, straight and narrower. Okay?
Yeah.
We need him slimmer. We need him under control. And I'm not talking about BBLs. I don't care who the guy sleeps with. I'm talking about getting his diet and routine and give a damn. You need to show him that light. Are you willing to do that? Because that's not a small ask.
I'm currently in the middle, by the way, just for content purposes, currently in the middle of rating and reviewing all of the movies in which his gals performed. I'll let you know which one, how it stacks up, whether that's big brown booties or brown beauties, whatever you want to prefer. I'll give you a rating system on those. Look, I really couldn't care less about the whole sleeping with women thing. To me, this is strictly physical. Okay? One, I know what you're saying. I don't disagree with the talent, the skill. maybe we get to a place where they do take this risk. They trade 3, and there's a package that works for both sides, and here you go. Christian Clark on the show covers the Pelicans for the for NOLA.com this morning. We asked him point blank, like, if they're to make a trade, who do you think they pick? And he goes, because of the fact that they just signed him to the contract and because of BI's contract, Christian Clark seems to think and it's just an educated guess, but his gut says he thinks they choose to trade Brandon and keep Zion because Zion still brings people to the arena in a way that Brandon doesn't, and he's under contract for 5 more years. Now, if Zion wants out, we find out later down the road, that will change things, right? Yes. I thought it was interesting that he said that. Now, on the actual Zion note here, I know we're joking about the guy making the video. I personally, it's problematic for me to watch him walk. Him just walking with a natural kind of like pigeon-toed kind of like waddle thing, I don't trust that. And I think he's an amazing talent. I'm all in on Zion. If we get to a point where they make that swing, I mean, it's a hell of a swing. But those medicals, whether those are conditions that will end his career or just dumb luck, the fact is consistently injured. And sometimes there are guys that just happens to. But the thing that you're kind of highlighting here that really kind of leaves me going, ooh, what's the success rate of guy who's eating too much suddenly stops eating too much? Now, he's 22. He could be 25 years old being in Portland and go, you know what? I'm a vegan.
Yep.
And he changes his life. We don't know how he is going to
Look,
age.
we got vegan strip clubs. He can get both here.
Exactly. But, and that'll be right up his alley, actually.
But listen, man, I did my research.
We don't know if he'll make that change, but
yes,
it's very hard for me to go, hey, Damian Lillard, lead him. Dame Lillard is disciplined. Dame Lillard knows what it takes and does it every year to be ready to play at an elite level. And I think it's a much harder task than just, oh, that guy is a good leader, so this guy is going to stop eating. I have people in my own personal life that are like, hey, will you kind of keep me in check, and we'll text on exercise and all. And I do it, and it goes a week, and these people are falling off the wagon. It is so much harder to say to do that. And I think the success rate of the league's history would actually show even maybe the most dominant player we've ever seen. And he was winning, but every year, what was the narrative on even Shaq? It was like, we kind of think he's playing too heavy and he's getting bigger. Shape. That's Shaq. And I'm supposed to expect Zion to suddenly change and stop and lose this weight. It's such a huge risk.
Yep.
But this is what what you're going to have to do if you want to win with Dame.
And that's the thing, is that I'm looking at this, let's like step it down in the sense of like talent. Yes, Zion is easily the most talented player they could get.
Right.
Hand to God, he's a generational talent.
Easily the most talented they've ever had with Dame.
So when you work your way down, okay, why would he be available? Well, because he's injury prone, and obviously the other stuff, the weight management, and say what you want to say about his social life.
Also, can I interrupt you real quick? The thing I would add to that too is it really felt like the end of that year, CJ's comments, some of the comments with the organization, like, I was injured and I was playing, and then we saw him doing the dunk, and they're like, he says he doesn't feel like Zion, so he's not playing. There's a weird thing there, it feels like, with what they're trying to establish and get him to do and what he is or is not doing to be ready for his team.
And that's the thing, is that, again, these are the risks. And that's, like you said, and I always say, follow the pattern and not the exception. Because Charles Barkley is the exception. Moses Malone called Charles Barkley fat. He said, you were too fat. Moses Malone, he got to the 76ers and said, you can't play like this. And Chuck was like, what do you mean? You know, kind of a deal. And that whole thing, the way Charles tells it, is incredible. Yeah. But he's just like, he just told me I was too fat. Like, you got to figure this out. And Chuck figured it out. And then there's Anthony Bennett, another number 1 overall pick. Not nearly as talented, obviously, but he just ballooned.
Yeah.
You know, tractor trailer, just ballooned. I mean, R.I.P. Caleb Swanigan.
Yeah.
Like, when you've had that issue, you have that issue. I mean, I've battled weight issues with all of my injuries, man. Like, I've put on, 50 pounds in 4 years. Like,
it's the most relatable issue.
Yeah, it's
like almost anybody can have in this country is eating and eating right and dieting and being healthy.
and that's the thing is like, but I want to make sure I highlight this when we talk about Zion. Like, there are 3 players in NBA history, that have taken over 16 shots a game and shot 60% from the field. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, once.
Not bad.
Kevin McHale, once.
He was okay.
Zion through 114 games.
Gets to the bucket and he finishes every time.
You know what he is. You know what he wants to do, and you still can't stop it. He is the definition of unstoppable. He is the biggest rim pressure threat in the NBA. There's nothing you can do about it. That's what makes it tantalizing, because you throw him in a pick and roll with literally the best pick and roll guard maybe in NBA history. Buddy, that gets spicy real quick. Now, what could possibly inhibit all of this? Well, like you said, beyond the injuries, beyond the weight, is that the Pelicans probably prefer to move on from Brandon Ingram. Well, interestingly enough, the Charlotte Hornets are kind of the linchpin, so to speak, of the NBA draft, in a sense of like who they draft kind of decides which path Portland goes with. Okay. Remind me again, who's in charge of the Charlotte Hornets besides Michael Jordan?
I think their general manager is Kupchak.
Mitch Kupchak. Where did he come from before the Charlotte Hornets?
The Los Angeles Lakers of California.
Do you know who drafted Brandon Ingram in 2016, number 2 overall?
I do. Mitch Kupchak, yeah.
So it appears we have another former LA-based general manager who can't let go of their toys.
Reunited and it feels so good.
There's real smoke to that fire.
Sure. I would understand. The only thing I struggle with is I look at the Charlotte side of that and I say, I know Charlotte's getting those future picks, 27, 25, and whatever, 9 this year, whatever the Pelicans ended up being, 13th, whatever. I just don't really understand why they would do that.
Nor do I.
I just think they're in a position where their city already doesn't care. Mike may or may not be selling this thing. We don't even know that anymore. And like LaMelo can't stay healthy. We're talking about guys who can't stay healthy. LaMelo can't stay healthy so far. I'm still I'm going to be the rogue one here. I think Charlotte will find a way to talk themselves into drafting Scoot.
They could.
You're looking for excitement and you're looking for people's interest and something to change. I think Brandon Miller is a very good basketball player. I think him next to LaMelo healthy is a nice little 1-2. I think Scoot gets people like,
gets the people.
We have the 6'2" guy with a 6'9" reach that yams on people and like wants to rip their throat out. There's an element of selling the franchise to a city that doesn't care about it that I think Scoot fits a little more than Miller does.
As it pertains to Brandon Ingram, do you know how many times in his career he has played more than 62 games?
I do know this. I think it's once.
Indeed, his rookie year.
79, 76,
79.
And then it was 62, 61, 59, 50, 54, 40,
59,
whatever.
52, 62, 61, 55, 45.
Not
so this
very
whole
good.
idea of like, Zion's hurt all the time. I'd much rather go with Brandon Ingram. Would you?
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot closer than you think it is on the games played index.
I made the argument today that I think I would rather take Ingram, and I'll tell you before you lose your shit. I can't argue against your point of Zion being more talented, and I can't argue against the availability of BI versus Zion. But what I think I would trust is, one, if you're getting Ingram, there's maybe more assets coming back with that. Now that's kind of murky too, because I don't think New Orleans wants to get rid of Herb Jones.
Oh, listen, if you're giving up 3 and you're settling on Ingram, you're getting one of Jones or Trey Murphy.
You have to.
It's a non-starter.
So to me, like, I took that approach. You're addressing a position you've never addressed really, and you're adding significant depth, and that gives you more of a play-in factor of we can make the playoffs this year with that kind of combo. And then I also know, despite his injury history, BI wants to play basketball. I got to be honest with you. I'm kind of to a point, maybe not as serious as some of these other guys, but I'm kind of to a point where I'm like, is Zion just Ben Simmons but better? Like, he just doesn't come across to me as a dude that thrives to play. And maybe BI doesn't. Maybe I'll be wrong on that. But that to me is a sticking point that's interesting, is if you're giving that pickup and you're doing this to win with Dame, like, I hope it's the right move, but I genuinely would be worried that he can't get out of the eating thing, the weight thing, and the passion and love it takes to be great in this league, man. Like, you've talked to Dame off the record. He's probably told you things that you can't repeat, but like, he gives you a perspective of, like, this shit is crazy hard.
Oh yeah. No, it's and the number of guys who actually work in the NBA, 15%.
Sure.
I'm talking about like the truly great guys. Like,
right.
And that doesn't mean they're great players. There are some of the best players in the NBA aren't some of the best workers.
Right.
Like, as insane as that is to say, like, guys like Dame and Giannis, they work. They put in insane amounts of work. They don't stop.
Jokic, like he hates basketball and he puts in all the work. Yeah.
It's like, but there are stars in the league who don't put in the work because we've talked about this. They're so preternaturally talented, so off the charts, insanely talented that they don't have to. And that translates. And I don't think BI is one of those guys. I've never heard like he's like a non-worker, but nobody's ever been like, no, he's got that dog. He works. He's kind of he's a Kobe guy, and nobody's ever been like, no, he's got that Mamba mentality. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's ever described him to me as that. And like, if I'm taking a lesser talent, you better be that dog. You better have that extra gas for me to be like, okay, it's a little bit safer on the injury front. It's not really that much safer.
Not a lot, but yeah.
It's really not.
Yeah.
And if you're talking like BI in a vacuum, I get it. I get it. But I look at Brandon as 6'9" CJ McCollum. Hezzy, tween, nothing but mid-range. Sure.
Mid-range guy.
If you look at his shot profile, in fact, let me pull it up real quick because I closed my tab. His on cleaning the glass. It is, we'll go full nerd here for a second. Brandon Ingram. Not Brandon Knight. Get out of here. Maybe. There we go. Brandon Ingram, not Andre Ingram. His shot profile, shot frequency. He is in the 99th percentile of mid-range shooting.
Yeah.
61% of his shots
come from the
mid-range. He is 22% of his shots come at the rim. That's the 27th percentile. His second and third years in the league, 45 and 44, then 32%, then 20%, then 22. He's in the second percentile in total shots from three.
Yeah.
Now, he's in the 74th percentile in mid-range shooting accuracy, so he's a bucket from the mid-range. But that is a guy who settles. He doesn't get to the rim and he doesn't work for threes. He works for his twos. It's a lot of, again, he's incredible at it, but hezzy, tween, and he's not a great creator. So I look at that and I go, fit-wise, it's not great.
See, and that's where I push back just a little bit. The midi stuff is what it is. The one thing I wonder about him, you mentioned the Kobe thing. Maybe Zion, this applies to Zion too, and I'm being unfair to Zion, but because there was so much laid on Zion's crown, the expectation is different for me. I know BI was a high draft pick and
number 2.
But, right, but people weren't talking about him the way we were talking about Zion.
No,
we were
a transcendent generational player.
Zion is LeBron, right? Like, this dude's, and he's not been even close to that. What I would wonder, though, is like, does BI get in a situation like Portland, which, by the way, those eyes walking around Portland, he fits in wonderfully. But I just wonder if he is around Dame, See, that's a guy that I'm like, I don't have to worry about the eating problem. I don't have to worry about what I have to worry about is what about round 2 and how does he feed off Dame? What kind of influence does Dame have on him? And how can he change his game somewhat? I actually think he could be okay next to Dame because of how successfully Dame has been as a creator. And I'm blanking. I should have wrote this down. I just saw over the weekend somebody put out a chart, and it may have been you that retweeted it or somebody else, but it was a chart basically looking into the shot creation that Dame creates as a player.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like graded and everything's A. Mm-hmm. And it's just like passes here, passes there, secondary look, hockey assist type stuff. And it's just like A.
I want to say Dame has created the most or second most threes over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah, he's got this. His creation is insane, and we've known that he has that ability. But has he ever had a guy even like Bi to pass to? And that's kind of like where I say,
yeah.
Who?
CJ. Stylistically,
CJ wasn't an all-star, man. CJ wasn't.
I mean,
I know you can say, oh, okay, all-star. But, like, we always love to say that about CJ. You know, he's like an all-star. He never was.
I mean,
and
BI's numbers, number one, it's a 1920 season. Mm-hmm. He averaged 24, 6, and 4. Like, how different is that from 23, 3, and 3?
5 inches.
Okay, again, but we're talking like, again, 5 inches matters.
If CJ was 5 inches taller, I would never have advocated breaking it up. But I'm like,
I would have.
Here we go.
I would have. Stylistically,
I don't. It's hard to find size like that.
I 100% agree.
What I think.
I agree on the size thing, but stylistically, I'm just not a Bi guy. I think that ball gets there and it stops. I look at just kind of like his creation has improved over the last couple of years, but I look at him more as a secondary creator, and it was almost because he had to, because they didn't really, because CJ doesn't. And with Zion out, it was like, well, where do you go from here? And again, I'm not saying Zion is end all be all. I'm saying proceed with caution.
Sure.
Like, first get by the medicals. If you get by that, then you dig deeper. Like, there's a lot to go through in that. With Bi, I'm very much just meh. Because as much as the other stuff, like, he's an incredible mid-range shot creator. One of the best in the NBA. Honestly, it's CJ, it's KD, it's Booker, it's Ingram, it's DeRozan. That Chris Paul's kind of fallen off in that regard in the sense of like volume. But those 5 guys, they will absolutely murder you from the mid-range as shot creators. And it's an incredibly valuable skill. But as much as that shot is super important in the NBA playoffs in the 16-game season, that rim pressure and what he does not do is not there. And look, Jokic is the best offensive player on the planet right now. They didn't win on hitting mid-rangers and hitting threes. They won on endless rim pressure. Over and over and over and over again.
Athletic. You just couldn't stop it.
Just endless rim pressure.
So I think that would bring the additional, what is the depth in that trade? Because if you tell me you're getting Herb, and Christian Clark said he doesn't think Herb is available. He's like, they love Herb Jones in that organization. Which,
look, Mikal Bridges isn't available for number 3 either. Let's see what that looks like on draft night.
Which I want a Herb in Portland. All right, we love the Herb. Let's just bring him here. I would be stoked about that. But what I would add though, Danny, is to everything you're saying, what do you do at center? Is there an upgrade at center or a thing at center you can do to help address some of the things you're talking about?
I don't think you can do it enough. And that's kind of the issue there.
But I kind of want to I'm at a point where if you're going Dame, and I got to be honest with you, in between these podcasts we've done the last couple, Paul Allen created it in me. I've been Paul Allen. I'm like, I kind of want to just draft Scoot. Let's just see what Scoot is. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
There's an element of that. But if we're going the Dame avenue, which is what we're talking about, like I'm kind of to a point where I just want to see more skilled guys than he had last year and taller. Just give me Dame with a bunch of 6'8" to 6'10" dudes. Like, I know they kind of did some of this at the end of the season and they didn't win, but like, I'm not talking Cam Reddish. I'm talking about Herb Jones and Brandon Ingram and fill in the blank and fill in the blank. Plus Jeremy.
Again, you're talking about additional guys. Like, the biggest thing that the playoffs reinforce for me is that you need creation, because the Heat only had one with Harrell out.
and he wasn't even that aggressive with it at the end.
No, his ankle like limited him.
But I'm you see, I think we're kind of doing two different things here. You're looking at like the uppest echelon of the league, and I'm like, I just want to see him as a 7 seed.
Yes,
Can
but
we not?
I'm not moving 3 for a 7 seed. That's what I'm talking about.
There's a real possibility that no matter who you get, you're not going to be top 4. Like that we have to maybe look at that too. It's like,
certainly,
can you be 6, 7?
But I'm going to do everything I can to stop that. And that's
sure.
That's the whole like settling thing. It's like,
sure,
if you're settling and you're like, well, if you squint, keep the pick.
Sure.
If you're squinting, you're like, well, if everything breaks right, no, get out. I don't like it. For me, it's one or the other.
But can you get one? But you have to play a bit of the short/long game. It's like, this is our step this year. We went from tanking 2 years in a row to we're the 7 seed, and we pushed the 2 like hell because the playoffs this year were crazy and insane. And then do you jump that and go to the 3 because you did the additional moves or somebody got better or whatever?
Sure.
Like, I think you kind of have to play that game, because I don't know what the move or moves plural are to take the leap in this first season post tanking for back-to-back seasons.
I don't think,
like, where does JB and Dame get you? Like, I don't know what they would do with Ant, but like, if you got Jalen
top 5
and
in the
Dame,
West,
you think it's top 5 in the West?
Yeah.
And that's the best case scenario, right?
Okay. That's the only move you're making. That's what I'm talking about. You're just making that move, and then you're filling out with, vet dudes that you like. You're in the mix.
But are you actually going to win the way that they want to? And that's where we're breaking.
But that's not an incremental change. That's you're adding an all NBA player.
Sure.
Like that's like Ingram's, again, like if I'm just for everybody else, if I'm ranking things, Zion would be number 1, the best possible available player
over JB.
Yes, hands down.
So if you had your pick of trades right now with the 3, you would trade for Zion before you'd trade it to Boston.
If the medical's cleared and I bought in on everything else, yes. But it's a lot of ifs. But if you're talking about, like, if I'm just ranking players, their ceilings and how impactful they could be, I would go Zion 1. This is where I get a little dicey. I think with this team, Mikal would be more impactful than Jalen.
Why do you say that?
Because I think he plays more and is more committed on the defensive end, and he's a better creator than Jalen. Mikal's one of the 3 or 4 best perimeter defenders in the league right now.
I can't argue about the creation in terms of handling the ball.
And as a passer. Yeah.
Gives off Al-Farouq Aminu vibes.
But Jalen has the longer track record of being able to get downhill and score and be a bigger body. We've seen Mikal do it for 4 months.
Right.
Which is like, it's a smaller sample. But like,
yes.
Jalen still, I mean, is the handle ever going to improve? I don't know. So I think I lean more towards Mikal for this team, in general, Jalen. But I would look at Mikal more than I would Jalen. Just because I think the fit is tremendous on this team. He's just kind of amorphous. Like you look at a guy like Mikal and you're like, what's wrong with him? And you're like, nothing. He's perfect. Kind of a deal. Jalen, you're like, well, he doesn't have a left hand. Like, he plays basketball with one hand.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of Mikal. I think Mikal is great. To play devil's advocate, though, on him, he would be... See, if he came here, I think because him and Dame are so tight, Dame would push more in the direction of, bro, take the shot. Like, We know Dame doesn't care about that.
He empowers. If you were that guy, he empowers you. Like that's unequivocally that Dame has been that guy his entire career.
I think it's different to go from Brooklyn and that situation, which was kind of bleak. Even though they made the playoffs, it was still kind of like a bunch of dudes.
They were 13-18 after the trade, if I remember right. 11-18, 13-18, something like that.
I think it's a much different thing and role and fit to go from that in Brooklyn to kind of going to a more slightly advanced version of what you were in Phoenix. And I'm not saying it's not good. It's not impactful or doesn't help them. I don't know how much of Brooklyn McHale Portland's going to get is kind of my point there. And that's
I would split the difference between Phoenix and Brooklyn. I'd say he's probably like a 25-5 guy, but you're also getting probably some of the best perimeter defense in the NBA. Like, that's a lot. So, again, I think we're splitting hairs.
What's tough here is I think because the depth thing is the other part of that trade, right? Like BI for 3 is no way. Like what are you doing? Get out of here.
No, I'm not. And again, I'm not trading 3 for BI or McHale.
You want more, right?
Yeah, like I like if I'm trading 3, I'm getting McHale and Clax. If I'm trading for BI, I'm getting BI and Herb or BI and Trey. Like,
and the thing, like, Spoke said something during the finals stuck out to me. Sorry, we're kind of going over each other a little bit, but Spoke said something during the finals I thought was really interesting. He said, "It's really hard to be good defensively if your best player is not one of those."
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, we know Portland would be going in with that. So to me, it's like, okay, if you have this area that is not as strong as other areas, what are you doing to surround it? Because Denver just became the 4th team in the last 40 years to be outside of the top 10 in defensive metric and win the NBA championship. Like, and by the way, I know Miami's offense kind of went back to what they were in the regular season. Their defense was they clamped down on the Heat. Like, they did a better job against Miami than anybody else did the whole season. And they weren't near those other teams defensively during the year. So if you have the right pieces in depth and supporting cast, then like your defense to a certain extent, like kind of be damned, you can be better in the playoffs. And again, Denver's kind of the anomaly to this because, again, 4 teams in 40 years. But I think if Dame that's not his strong side of the ball, you have McHale, Clax, or you go BI, and I know what we think about BI, but you add Herb Jones, or, if you put the right pieces around him, I think you can overcome those defensive woes.
And again, the one thing, like, Dame has had his defensive limitations, but if you go back and watch the playoffs series in Portland, find me the tape of Dame getting hunted. Doesn't really happen. Like, as much as, like, during the regular season,
Russ tried to do it, but Russ fell into the trap of I want to win one-on-one again.
Yeah, and what did he end up shooting that series? 37%. He
rocked the baby a couple times.
Oh yeah, he hit that deep 3 that he let him take for the sixth time wide open. And that's the thing. It's like you look at that and you go, okay, and they end up winning the series. But going through the pecking order real quick, I would say Zion, McHale, Jalen, Siakam, Gap, Ingram. That's how I would rank them. And if I was on fit, Zion and McHale are probably on the same level. Because Zion, I feel like it was like, oh, he can't shoot. And I'm like, you don't think they're going to load up on the backside to that guy? Because if he catches it going downhill, good luck.
Yeah, you got to get out of the way or you're going to be on a poster.
Good luck. He walks the ball up and has 3 guys in front of him and gets there. You put him on the second side of attack. Good Lord.
That's the one thing, too, about Zion that's interesting to me from a basketball angle is watching the evolution or the creation between what they become with Zion and Dame. Because to me, when I watched the Pelicans early this year, I thought he was at best when he was the point forward. He was the creator. He was bringing the ball up, and he was getting guys like, he didn't play a whole lot, but he was getting guys looks. He was finishing at the rim at a high level. Dame in that scenario is playing a little more off ball than normal. So to me, it's not that Dame can't figure that out. It's just more merely from a basketball standpoint, I'd be fascinated to watch that.
Let's go through a couple of these questions because we have 80 of them now, I think. Good 81. Good Lord.
Wow. We're not getting through 81 questions.
No, I'm just going to grab a couple of, as we go through because we got about 15 minutes here.
Yeah.
Who is the Jeff Green we can and should acquire in the offseason? Probably Jeff Green.
Jeff Green's available.
It's probably Jeff Green.
Yeah.
If the Blazers do what I think they're going to do, I firmly believe they're going to add probably 3 impactful veterans. And I'm not talking about like the biggest names you've ever heard of. I'm talking about guys that have playoff experience, that have been tested in real series, that have real skills. Like you throw them on the floor, Chauncey Billups, the second Joe signs them to their contract, Chauncey Billups trusts them to play. You don't have to go, well, if I just kind of dance, just dudes, 16-game dudes, guys that were on playoff teams this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I expect them to go. And I feel like that they'll find impactful guys in that vein. Why? Because that's what the organization and people around the team have told me. It's like they don't want to be this young. You know, I asked Joe when we had him on the show. Joe, you had one of the youngest rosters in the league based on weighted minutes, even though you had a 32-year-old point guard and 2 28-year-olds in your starting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
That just shows you the back half of the roster is wildly young.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if that was the case this year. I would expect that the average age goes from 25 to probably 28 years old. And that's not a small change. That is a massive change. So, I don't know.
I'm wondering, like, his value probably went up, and I know he didn't have necessarily the greatest finals, but I liked what I saw from Strus.
Oh,
and
listen.
He's unrestricted.
I'm telling you right now, Portland's not going to have the money to get him.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm afraid of. But a guy like that coming in, that if you can get him at the right price tag that fits, and he's, again, probably not it, like those are the kind of guys you need, man. Like,
oh, yeah.
He had some really good moments. I know he didn't shoot the ball incredibly, but like cutting, being active, making the right pass. Like he did a lot of that kind of extra stuff. He struggled in rebounding defensively and couldn't make a shot, but
that man's jumper went sideways. Going into Game 5, he was shooting 16% in the finals.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Just
terrible.
Oof. I would expect a team like Cleveland to be very, very interested in Max Strus.
Yeah.
This is from at Nerd Runner. What are the primary skills you want in any guy we trade for to be our other forward next to Grant? For me, playmaking, rebounding, defense are top 3, especially since neither Grant or Shaden really create for others. If you agree with the playmaking part, is Ingram a better choice than Brown? On the playmaking front, Ingram is better than Brown because, year 7, Jalen still doesn't have left hand, and he's still very narrow-minded as a creator.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that.
T-Mac told KG on his Showtime show, he basically said that watching Jalen, he felt like Jalen, and he said a lot of guys in the league do this, but he thinks that Jalen was thinking about the move more than what the defense was giving.
Yes. Not
so
reading.
It's like, I got to cross him over here. And like Miami read that every time and picked his pocket instead of just, hey, my right is strong. I'm going right, and I'm athletic and big enough to maybe make a different move to get to a different place.
Everybody knew Isaiah Thomas, the littler Isaiah Thomas, was going left. He was no matter how much he went right, he was coming back left. I believe his drive left rate was something like 96%. It was batshit crazy. Like he's going left, and somehow his little ass got left over and over and over and over. It was insane.
Bro, he didn't win a state title and average 40 a year as senior year of high school by just not going the same direction as his dribble hand. Like, that dude's whole career was created by going left.
He went, see it? This is where it's going. Good luck. And I think
that's why I don't get mad at certain players. Like, Jalen needs to be better dribbling for sure.
Yes.
But guys like IT, like, man, if something works and that's your career, it's so much easier for us. Yeah, it's so much easier for us to go, why don't you go the other way? It's like, because I got to this point where you're criticizing me by doing the thing you don't want me to do.
I mean, It's pretty easy. But the primary skills, I have kind of beat this drum for a while. I feel like playmaking is the most underrated and big at Marcus efficiency that exists in the NBA. If you can find it, shooting is everywhere. Now, specialized shooting, movement shooting, or shooting with size, that gets much more and more difficult. Playmaking with size is the single most important skill in the NBA right now. So I would say playmaking. And at that point, I would say most forwards, playmaking forwards, you're probably looking for like a defensive guy anyways. That comes with that. Rebounding, I'm not really, it's great if you're a plus rebounder at that spot, but I don't think you need to be like the world's greatest rebounder at that spot. Just because Jeremy's a subpar rebounder, I don't think the Blazers, like they need to make sure that they have rebounding everywhere else. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What would you kind of rank as far as like the most important forward skills to kind of balance out the teams as it sits now?
I mean, I think, see, the tough part with answering this question is knowing what's happening with Ant. Mm-hmm. Because it goes back to a bit what we said with Zion and BI, shot creation. Denver's obviously at a stratosphere Portland's not remotely close to, but watching a team play so unselfishly, pass the ball, move around when you don't have the ball, like playing kind of Golden State-esque basketball with one of the greatest centers we've ever seen. That's easier said to copy than actually do. I'd like him to try to get a guy that you don't completely get nervous when he gets the ball and puts it on the ground. Like I know you're not going to go get a James Harden, but you need a guy that can handle the rock, whether that's to get his own shot or to go in once in a while and be aggressive and try to get to the free throw line or get an easy layup or dunk. To me, that's priority one. Like rebounding and like defense, again, like if you have the right guys around you can overcome certain things. And I just like, okay, rebounding, I guess. It's not like there's Dennis Rodman on the market here. I'm more concerned with shot creation and where you're shooting your shots.
And again, they do need to address their rebounding, but a big part of that is they didn't really have their center for, the last.
Well, I think
half
the numbers
of
are
the season.
skewed given what happened.
Yeah, they are. On the sliding scale of Alfred Camino to James Harden, if we could just split the middle and lean towards that, I think we'll be okay.
I'd be in on that. Yeah.
This from at Mr. Colin Wilcox. Dame spoke about not wanting more 19-year-olds, but he followed that up by talking about how Shaden was different due to his frame, disposition, ability to listen, blah, blah, blah. Is there a world in which Dame could sign off on Scoot or someone else for similar reasons? I feel like we've hit this 1,000 times, but I'll say it one more time. No. No. Because 19-year-olds suck. Just they don't impact winning. Scoot could absolutely be a franchise-changing player and also not impact winning one bit for the first 3 years of his career. That's just the nature of the beast.
They use that pick on Scoot. I'm just going to mentally say there was a conversation had. And yeah, right. Yes.
Because it's not impacting winning.
No.
Dame plays 35 minutes a night. Where are you getting Scoot minutes?
Also, like, I don't know about you, Danny, but like the only time Portland gets mentioned is what? It's Stephen A. I want to trade Damian Lillard. Like it's trade Dame nonsense. It's the only time Portland gets talked about. If they drafted Scoot 3, what do you think the national coverage is, man? We might end up being the story of the draft if they were to do that, because they'd be like, oh.
It's going to immediately, they're going to cut away to some B-roll of Dame. The second they draft Scoot.
Yes.
Or Miller.
And none of us can go, oh, this again, because if they draft Scoot, like you need to wake up. The situation is certain guys just didn't become available. And it's a youth developmental front office that has a good idea of who these prospects are. That's a hell of a dude. You can't pass on that dude.
And that's ultimately where I think it tries to get a little bit weird in that regard.
Sure.
But, yeah, I'm
mentally ready, Danny. I'm like,
it's entirely fine, and I get it. But people who are championing walking down the middle line, it makes me want to blow my brains out. Like, are you the fucking Stockholm syndrome? Like, I'm sorry, I don't use the F-bomb all that much on here, but it fucking kills me. Like, it genuinely causes my eye to twitch. I'm just like,
really?
Oh, it's like, we had 9 years of Fucking Neil O'Shea! What are you doing? Pick a path! For the love of God, pick one side or the other. I don't give a shit. Just pick one. It genuinely infuriates me because, like, well, I don't want to take one fucking risk once in a decade. Once. It's all I'm asking. We had the most scared shitless GM in the league for 9 years. 9 years the guy sat on his hands and tinkered around the margins. I'm so tired of it. Tired of it. Pick a path. Well, if we just do this, just push me out of the car. Ejectocito, cuz. Done. I want no part of it. It's so maddening. It's like, well, what if they took Scoot and maybe did, like, what are you trying to accomplish here? Like, what are you trying to do?
Danny, what if we had Dame Ant starting lineup with Jeremy Grant? Hold on. And then when they go to the bench, it's Scoot Shaden. It's like, hey, 30 and 22-year-old, here we go. And then he'd be like, hey, 19-year-olds, let's do it.
For 7 minutes apiece? There you go. All right, well, roll them back out in 3 years. Like, what's the point? What's the point? And, like, I'm saying this, I can only imagine what Dame's thinking. Just give me a shot.
Well, I think that I don't talk to Dame, but I'd imagine the news surfacing, like, kind of get you to go, oh, okay, some things are happening. Some wheels are turning.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing is, like, I firmly believe that things are getting hot before the draft.
Yes.
And again, I think if the right deal comes along, Portland takes a swing. That's the thing. Is like, I genuinely believe that in my discussions, I genuinely believe that if the right deal comes along, they will swing. But I also, from discussions and from the past, know that if their valuation isn't met, they'll make the pick.
Mm-hmm.
But this, like, whole idea of, like, walking both lines again and again and again and again. And we had Joe on. The line he used, remember, we know it's a little bit reckless to work in both timelines. It's okay to do it for a little bit. You can't keep doing it. And that's where I end up. It's like, if they use the pick, I am not going to be shocked in the least bit if Dame's like, Here's the thing. I also think there's a world where Dame's like, I don't like this, but I also don't want to leave. But then you're kind of handcuffing.
Well, you do the Scoot thing, and it's kind of putting it, like, in a position where that's not possible. Brandon Miller is like, oh, I love it here, man. Okay, whatever. Like, maybe,
Scoot, you're Brett Favreing him.
Yeah, you kind of are.
You're like, here's Aaron Rodgers. Cool. He can sit on the bench for 4 years. You know what I mean? Like, there's that element to it.
Yeah.
Because I've heard some people say, well, they could play together. No, they can't. No, they can't. No, the guard that is shorter than C.J. McCollum and can't shoot cannot play with Damian Lillard.
No.
And I think Scoot's going to figure out the jumper stuff. Like, down the line, I think he'll be at least a passable shooter. But his athleticism and his rim pressure are fantastic. Like, but that's a ball-dominant guy. And this whole, well, Dame can move off ball. Yes, the guy that's been in the league 12 years is the most ball-dominant pick-and-roll player in the history of the modern NBA. Is just going to be like, nah, fuck it. I'm going to move off ball. Come on, guys. Pull the blinders off for a second and be like, that's not happening. You can't, it's not even like Tiger changing its stripes. This is like holding the Tiger down, strapping him to the floor and cutting the stripes off.
Telling him to be a vegetarian.
Yeah, it's like, what?
You know how much meat I've eaten?
Literally, Dame tried it. Dame tried being a vegetarian and he could not do it. He's like, I can't keep my weight on. Like,
yeah.
So again, Colin, I'm not beating you up. I'm saying that general thought process, like trying to make everyone happy.
Mm-hmm.
The everyone happy road, man, that's just, it's very weird. I don't like, look, I would love to make an amicable move, which is why I don't envy Joe in the position that he's in right now. It is a very, very, very difficult position to be in because the moves that he makes will quite literally impact the face of this franchise for the next decade.
Well, I think you want to be the guy that appeases Dame and makes the move and goes, hey, we got so-and-so. Like, that'd be awesome. you also, in a weird way, like you could end up drafting a guy that's generational, but you'll be known more in that time as the guy that traded Dame. And you don't like, unless there's a conversation about assets that aren't there and it's a mutual respect, like it would suck to be in that. Like I told Heiken this of like, it's almost a curse in a way. You have all these things in front of you, but some things are out of your control. And then it's like, cool, I get this, but I gotta do this. And I just don't envy that at all, man.
No. And I'll be honest, if I was a betting man with where the organization is right now, they definitely don't want to trade Damian Lillard. And this is me boiling it down to like the coldest thing possible. Damian Lillard puts asses in seats. Scoot might someday. First couple months, Brandon Miller. First couple of months, sure. You're not getting 10 years out of that guaranteed. Dame was that guy day one.
Well, yeah, that's the best part about him, right? Is the commitment, the loyalty. How many of those dudes exist? They don't happen often here.
20-10 against the Lakers opening night. From the jump, he was certified and stamped.
Yep.
He was that dude from the jump. The likelihood of that coming around again is slim to none. How do I know? Because he's literally the only one in the franchise's history. Yep. Every star they've ever had has left them.
Yep.
It's not that simple. And everybody wants to make it seem like it is.
No.
It's more than the basketball stuff. He's more than that. And that's the thing I want to drive home more than anything. A couple more questions and we'll wrap up here. At Zach Backpacks has two questions. Do the Hornets really want Miller or is this a play? The first part of this. Everything I've heard is yes. Obviously, there's public stuff behind the scenes. I have heard yes. If I did a straw poll right now in my head of people that I've talked to, I would say it's probably like 9-3. Like of the 12 people that I've talked to, 12, 15 people I've talked to in the last couple of days who are either draft people or execs or people in the league who are relatively plugged in around Charlotte or know and worked with people in Charlotte, that Miller's very much in play. But I also know that there's been plenty of discussions around Scoot. So
I'm gonna play the 2022 NBA draft. And I'm going to say at this point, we were debating if it was Jabari or Chet. And then
it changed 12 hours before the draft.
Yeah, 12 hours. It was like Paolo. And again, I'll highlight, I would understand why they'd move off LaMelo. They're in a bad spot where the city doesn't care about them. They've been irrelevant. Michael Jordan's been a terrible owner.
Miles Bridges.
I think Scoot gives them a buzz, pun intended there, that they haven't had in a long time. I will not be surprised if it's Scoot. And they don't trade that pick, and then Portland's like, we traded Miller or we draft Miller. And then it gets interesting.
Or if they go weird and they take Amen.
How do you think that works? That's what I'm curious about.
The big thing on him is the playmaking. He's a 6'7" point guard. And again, playmaking at the wing position. He's probably the best athlete in the draft.
How does he play off ball?
The shooting's non-existent, and his shot form will make you puke.
Yeah. Can we trade Brandon Miller?
But I know a lot of people who think that he's special.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who think he's special. So, his second question, which realistic option do you want to be the starting center on opening night?
Brook Lopez.
That's a really good one. Sign and trade.
I would cry.
I mean, there's been noise about him. I mean, obviously,
phenomenal.
Obviously, his brother lives here in the summer.
Bring him.
Honestly, I would take both of them.
Hell yeah! Give me the Lopez twins. Let's be Stanford.
Look, I would have Robin as my 15th man in a heartbeat. He's all vibes. Vibes. Break glass in case of emergency. Big as Robin Lopez. Sign me up.
Could you imagine Brooke with Robin as a bodyguard from Mascots?
Oh God.
she'd be the happiest person in Portland if he actually came. She'd be like, oh, that Buffalo's not gonna fuck with me anymore. Thank you, God. I'll tell you right now, we already got Dame from Oakland. Give me the Lopez twins.
Yeah.
Let's run the Bay Area special. Stanford and Oakland together. Let's do it.
Well, if you're going to do that, the Thompson twins are from Oakland.
I want the I know what the Lopez twins are.
You
okay.
You can do both.
Brooke is a top.
Load up on twins.
Yeah,
and twins.
2020 twins.
There is a ton of questions in here, but we went really long on the Zion stuff. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to save this questions, and we will do a mailbag show Thursday, Friday.
I think Thursday should work. I'll text you, but Thursday should work. Okay. Well, let's not cold intro. Like, let's just go into the questions.
Yeah, no, we'll go right in. Like, there's a lot of questions in here, and this time of year is a perfect time for it. Again, thank you all. Like, rate, review, subscribe. There's been like 600 of you in here, give or take, throughout the show, and we appreciate you guys so very much. Again, like, rate, review, subscribe. Get us up to 5,000. I think we're like 60 short of 5,000. It's a meaningless number, but I just like seeing the 5 in front of it. And again, big shout out to everybody who subscribed to the Patreon. I was blown away by the support. Absolutely blown away. I hope you guys have enjoyed the content. For anybody in here who is a Patreon subscriber, if you went to the big package, I post draft either Friday or Saturday, whatever the Blazers do. What I will do is we will have a film session on whatever path they take. If that means they go with Scoot, we will throw on the Scoot film and we will dive into the Scoot film. This is I want to make it valuable for you guys who opted into that tier. If they make a trade for a player, we will dive into that player's film. We will go on YouTube and it'll be a private session. I will throw up Synergy, all of the numbers and film that you can handle, and play and stop and work through all of the things. That's one of the things I'm really excited about doing with the Patreon. If you want to go ahead and do that, you can go to the Patreon and sign up there. The Discord is active. I've got a couple mods that are going to help kind of spruce some things up there. We'll have the active Discord. We'll do some Q&As there. We do not have a location yet for the draft show. It's up in the air. Hopefully I will know tomorrow. I'm working with our guys at the radio station to get that narrowed down. It looks like it is going to happen. I just don't know where. I have a reeling suspicion of where it's at, but
I was going to say, if it doesn't, we won't have to worry about being ahead of a whole bar and restaurant.
No, we don't. And if we do that, we'll just do it like we do here, and we will do it live. We'll do it with everybody. It'll be a great day. It'll be a ton of fun. As soon as the draft wraps, I will be bolting out the door. The Blazers will have a press conference at the practice facility, probably an hour and a half after the draft, because they got to go through the paperwork, the league stuff. They got to go through and do their undrafted guys that they're going to invite to camp and all that kind of stuff. So things will heat up a ton in the next 5 or 6 days. Just a heads up, the Blazers do have workouts tomorrow. I believe they have workouts Thursday, and I think we're going to end up having workouts Friday. So I believe the next 3 mornings we will have workouts. I'm almost certain Brandon Miller will be in one of those days.
Has to be.
Yeah, I have a reeling suspicion. I'll just put it like that. Again, thank you all. Appreciate you. Love you. Like, rate, review, subscribe. Help us grow the show. Danny Marang, at Danny Marang, at Brandon Sprague, at Jack Ramsays, jackramsays@gmail.com. You can listen and listen to Brandon every morning, 6 to 9 on 1080 The Fan with his co-host, Andy Dirtbag Johnson. And you can find me and my co-host, Dusty Hira, from noon to 3, also on 1080 The Fan. And we will have some more and more stuff coming up. And expect to see more and more out of the channel here. We're going to do more, as you know, we took our break and now we're going to kind of get things up. And I should also make sure to mention our illustrious sponsor of the show, Move Insoles. Year-long sponsor. Other hand for you. It's right above you. There you go, babe. Who will be our year-long sponsor because I'm an idiot and I lose bets. Again, appreciate y'all. Everybody have a wonderful night. We will circle back, talk soon, and take care. Bye.